Your values are
Right.
going to determine your priorities, right?
Welcome to This Week in No Code and AI. I'm your host, JJ Englert, here with my co-host, David Pell. We have another fantastic show for you, covering all the latest pop culture of no code and AI, some of the news. And then we're bringing on a special guest later in the episode, maybe around the 10 to 15-minute mark, where she is a startup founder coach, and she will be talking about some advice for founders out there and all the things that they could do to increase their chances of success. But first, let's get started with our no code AI news of the week with Mr. David.
For all of you out there listening, if you are in the market for any kind of software development needs, check out Studio No Code. It's our agency that's built on Bubble experts with nearly a decade of experience building all kinds of Bubble apps: marketplace, social network, payroll company, catering business, data room, ad tech, legal tech. We got a little bit of everything. We've seen it all, and that helps us translate all of our knowledge into your app to build the best product for your customers. We built it professionally, we built it to be secure, and we built it to scale. And we're going to do all these things on time and on budget. So if you are looking for help getting off the ground, getting something to market, or anything in between, give us a call or an email or a carrier pigeon or whatever you want. Studio-nocode.com. We'll probably be there.
Well, Aloha Wednesday. We have a
July
short
3rd.
week, July 3rd here. It's Wednesday, but it feels like a Friday. So I'm wearing my Aloha Friday shirt. Excited for the news and the celebrations. For everyone out there celebrating July 4th, have a good time. Let's talk about what happened last to this week in no code and AI. The first news that I'm excited about is Retool. Retool, known for being an internal tool management platform, kind of on the more coded side of no code or low code, has launched external apps. Boy, what a rebrand. They are no longer just internal app tools. They are an external app provider. One of the things that we keep seeing with these low code, no code tools like Glide, I think Software is the same way. They're great at building internal tools quickly, but they're not meant for SaaS kind of things where other people have logins and other people you're kind of pitching this out to everyone else. This Retool product release is about building better tools for other people outside of your company, right? So you can now bring in their world, this was a little bit, I think, further away than Software was, but Glide, similar to Glide, this is allowing them to kind of build for external people, custom branding so that you're setting themes. It feels like your own app. You're setting role-based permissions and 500 users for free. So they seem to be leaning more towards the Glide pricing model where it's pay per user. JJ, what do you think?
Yeah, Soft has been doing this for a while. It allows internal and external users. With Retool, they've only allowed internal users, so essentially people only at your company, and that's an internal tool. But now there's tools that maybe need people at your company and maybe some external people as well, and that just gives the possibilities of making that happen. It seems not like that big of it's a big update because it's Retool and they're changing things, but in terms of like their technology and everything, I don't think it's a huge thing. I'm interested to see why they're doing it though.
I was gonna ask you, who do you think's driving this? Is this the
Yeah,
leadership going, we need to expand our TAM, or is this a customer or agency partner going, we need these features for XY reason?
yeah, I think it's more of like agency partners saying we need these features just for, these scenarios, but it's still not meant for like spitting up SaaSes and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
just to expand on and give more flexibility to their internal tool workflow and to allow for more other people to come in and collaborate with them, even if they're not part of the org. So that's what I would think. Let's move on to our next news of this week with Kreato, a no-code CRM and workflow automation platform that raised $200 million, now valued at 1.2 billion. It's a no-code CRM and workflow automation platform. designed for enterprise scale operations, competing with Oracle, Salesforce, Microsoft, and it integrates AI features for tasks like sales opportunity, email generation, workflow design. Another no code AI, builder in a CRM like way. I think, the cool thing about this is it has that CRM core functionality, and then it allows you to add on top of that. But otherwise, it's a general no code builder, and we're seeing a lot of these pop up right now.
Yeah, it's still just always surprising to me that CRMs are still being innovated on. Like,
And
for
raising this
so
much
long,
money.
yeah, $200 million is a huge raise.
Yeah.
I think, and I was following along with this with one on Twitter who runs, I think it's called Octolane, which is a YC CRM. It's AI first. And I think this is where we're at in the world where like Salesforce is still manual everything, but AI lets you take raw inputs from the data, like reading a call transcript or reading an email and automatically classifying where that needs to go and what changes need to be made to the CRM.
Yeah.
So, you have a salesperson and you might have a sales ops person on your team who's helping to keep everything up to date. AI is the sales ops now.
Mhm.
Right,
Yeah.
and I think I don't know how big or how old this company is. I wonder if they're going to be able to actually build this AI first, or if this is like, "Hey, let's just bolt this on."
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of competition with those of like a Salesforce and a HubSpot, and like they need a lot of money to get out there. I think CRMs aren't going away. Everyone needs to manage their customer data in some place. I think they want to continue to leverage insights, automations, and everything to do that more efficiently and make
Yeah,
sense. It's
mhm.
also like CRMs are kind of like the first step into no code in a way of just like everyone kind of needs a CRM and many companies use CRMs, but then you start to add automations and workflows and AI into it, and then it's like, okay, you're starting to be a builder in some way. And so
Yeah.
that's also an interesting on-ramp into this technology. Why don't we move on to Figma though?
Ron, what
Because
yeah.
they are dominating the headlines again with a huge round of updates on the AI side. I gotta
Yeah.
say, David, I'm really happy with what Figma's doing.
There's a little bit of drama going on, I think, at the moment with Figma and this AI. So they announced basically that they're getting into AI generation. I think this is cool. We've seen tools like Galileo. We've talked about those. Reloom is another one. Um, TLDR or TLD sketch or TL draw, yeah, is what we had. TLD, I don't know, TL draw. We talked about where you could draw and you build a UI from it. Figma obviously makes sense that they're getting into AI generation from a prompt.
Yeah.
It's raised some eyebrows because now they're like, well, we might use your data, like we might use your designs to train our model. Although the CEO has come out and said, no, we're not training on your data, but we might use it to help you differently.
It's confused a lot of people. They
It
don't really
has
know what it is.
this is This is a hot button issue right now in the legal space, actually. Everyone's changing their terms of service to allow for AI use cases, even
We
if
just
they
saw this
don't
with Adobe
know.
as well.
Yeah, even if they don't know how they're going to use it yet, they're like vaguely putting in language that we might use user data or usage statistics, blah blah blah. But in Figma's case, they're now taking a lot of heat because when somebody asked to build a weather app, no matter how many times they asked or what they asked for, they basically got a copy of Apple's weather app. And they're like, this is Apple. Like, and I don't know how it got to that or why it got there
Yeah.
or what they've actually done, but they've now like paused a bunch of rollouts because they're nervous that they're going to take this heat for like copying, and it might be awesome. And like for me, I don't care. I actually, in fact, I wanted to look closer to Apple than not closer to Apple. So I'm like, great, yeah, yeah, bring it
Yeah.
on. But that's just one of the things they released. But
Which
they
was
got
their
a little
AI designer, right? It
the
allows you
AI
to generate
designer.
mobile
Yeah,
and web
yeah.
UI designs from text prompts.
Yeah, exactly. And they also have a new UI that they're rolling out. They're adding Figma slides, a little bit more presentation oriented, collaborative, which is great. We would need something like this all the time at the studio. We use prototypes, but slides would be pretty cool too to
Yeah,
explain
and
them.
it also just for design teams showing stakeholders what they're doing, it makes so much sense. AI prototyping automatically turning wireframes into prototypes. So like
Yeah.
there's a lot of really cool AI stuff. I think the thing that made the news is, all right, how you're using my data now, and does that mean that you're taking everything that I'm doing and gonna just replace me with AI? And that's where I think a lot of people are getting scared. But otherwise, they love the AI features.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, let's hop into the last one here.
Beehive?
Yeah, let's talk about Beehive.
Yeah, so Beehive acquires AI-based website builder TypeDream. Beehive has been on a roll, man. They're over 10 million ARR. They did a Series A raise earlier this year.
With
They're not,
community investment. Yeah.
yeah, and now they've acquired. Isn't this the second company they acquired this year?
I think we're yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's
and
what they
so
raised the money for. Yeah.
yeah, and so we acquired this website builder, and so they're seeing a solution where websites, your emails, everything is tied into an all-in-one stack where your newsletter goes out in an email form, and you can customize that fully with an AI website builder now, and then also can hit the inbox and everything like that. I wonder if they're going to go beyond newsletter and websites though, in terms of like actually going in like a Wix play of like becoming like an actual website builder and then newsletters become like a secondary thing. I'm not sure, but this
Mm.
was another big acquisition from a fast moving company.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, oh, Beehive, right? They are doing crazy things. I think they already had a website builder,
They did.
I
And it
think.
wasn't bad. It was
Yeah.
quite
And
good.
now they're like, great, we're gonna power this. And I think this is part customer acquisition, right? Because
Yeah.
TypeDream had a bunch of customers,
Yeah.
thousands of customers. They have now hundreds more templates to start from, and the AI builder. I think this is hey, we don't want to spend 6 months getting here. We're just gonna work together and bring an awesome team on. I am
Split scale.
curious. I think it seems like they're going directly after ConvertKit. Like ConvertKit
Yeah.
has all these things as well. I would be like, this is a creator world, right? I wouldn't be surprised if the next thing they launch or buy is a storefront kind of builder, like a
They're doing a
Shopify
lot with
light.
storefront already where you can just like download things with giving them a donation and everything. So that would make more sense, even though they're doing a lot of that already. I think
Yeah.
yeah, that creator economy where they have website newsletters and you're selling all that and they want to power that.
Yeah, like an AI store, like ties in with you could sell things from a newsletter.
Yeah, yeah. I think they're
Startup
definitely
idea,
getting there.
startup idea alert, startup idea. Anyone looking for something, go build the Beehive store. What would we call it if it was a beehive?
It would
It'd be
be the
like
hive.
honeycomb. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is the
honeycomb.
hive. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure. I
Yeah, the
want to
honey
bring it
maker.
back to another episode when we brought on Loops, the founder of Loops, right? And we're like,
Yeah,
why are
Chris.
you building a startup for emails, right? And it's like, it's a big problem, right? That's a huge market. It's validated. There's a huge TAM.
Yeah.
Another just email player, just having crazy success building an email solution, right? So sometimes the big problems, the ones that aren't sexy are the ones with the most potential in this sense. And emails are definitely a space that is interesting. I also can't like SendGrid has just plummeted, man. I have never seen such a big company silently fall as fast as they have from like a reputation, a technical capability, like a
Well,
it's
weren't
just
they acquired? Like, I wonder if they just like moved into Twilio and then all of the top engineers were like, our stock package is done. We're done. We're out.
I don't know, but, like, it's just the overall reliability of SendGrid. We've seen it
Yeah.
in the Bubble ecosystem
Well,
because it's
now
heavily
Bubble
supported on
it's
there.
getting banned left and right. They're like,
And
uh,
Bubble themselves, us Bubble builders didn't even use SendGrid for our own apps, and then yet Bubble's still using it for all their apps after so many warnings. It's just weird to see such a big company, an email company,
yeah,
just silently fall off the cliff and just like everyone have problems with it. Like we
yeah,
had to move our studio away from it because we try to sign up a new client for them and they would instantly ban that new client. It's
I
like
know.
it doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, but
Yeah. And now we've been using loops and it's actually been great. Like,
There
it's
you
easy
go.
to design the website. You just hit the API call. You're not sending weird JSON around. It's been
Beautiful.
really great. We do the API. We don't use the plugin, but we
Yeah,
found it really helpful.
there you go.
Anyway,
Well, David, why don't we get on to our
cool.
interview with Regina, the Startup Coach founder?
Now, a quick break for our sponsor of This Week in No Code.
If any of you guys are looking to learn more about Bubble, whether you're a beginner or a professional looking to get certifications and take your skills to the next level, you got to check out No Code Alliance. It's been a personal project of mine for the last 2 to 3 years. I have 5 different courses there, all focusing on Bubble and taking you from zero to pro. And these courses tell you everything you need to know to start earning 6 figures as a Bubble developer. So go to nocodealliance.org, either get started with the beginner course or take our package and go from zero to pro in the next 3 to 6 months, and you won't regret it. That's nocodealliance.org. Back to the show.
Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Regina Jebo, leadership. No, it's fine. We're gonna go with it. You leadership. Is that okay? Should I take it again?
No, you're good.
Um,
What I said was amazing.
Great.
I wasn't making a snarky comment.
I'll be moving to France next year. You won't know. The brash American moves to France. This is the next episode. Anyway,
His
we're
Hawaiian t-shirt.
yeah, in a Hawaiian, obvious Hawaiian t-shirt.
This is feeling more and more and more like the All In podcast.
There we
Less
go.
and less structured, yeah.
Yeah.
Shoot the shit.
Anyway, so we're going to talk leadership today. We're going to talk about founder struggles, founder mental states, and first, let's learn a little bit more about Regina. Do you want to give us if your LinkedIn could talk?
If my LinkedIn could talk,
What would
my
it say? Well, how would it describe itself?
my
Bar.
intro would be a lot more boring if it was based on my LinkedIn. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm happy to give a little introduction
Yeah.
to myself. So I currently am an executive leadership coach. I work with leaders across the C-suite. I work with founders, VPs, directors, and a lot of my work is revolving around helping these leaders make really good decisions strategically. But it's not only the tactical, right? I work with founders and leaders and help them see how the emotional component plays a really heavy role in influencing someone's leadership decisions. And so that's the work I do as a leadership coach. Before that, I was the first chief of staff to Matt Mashari, who is the executive coach to the CEOs at OpenAI, Scale, Coinbase, Brex, a lot of really great companies. And then before that, my background is as an operator. I was head of operations at On Deck, and that's where I get a lot of my tactical strategic knowledge from. So that's a little bit about me.
Let's start with On Deck because I
Yes.
just loved that phase of life. Like there was a
Me
really good
too.
year or two where like there was so much excitement, so many courses, you guys were just booming. How was your experience there?
It was such a whirlwind, and I look back with a lot of fondness. I'm sure there's some rose-tinted glasses there, but I remember when I started at On Deck, I was probably number 20. We were really, really small. And this was, I guess we were a seed stage company at that time. And I remember within, 3 or 4 weeks or so, I was talking to my manager, Brandon, who was saying, "Hey, we need someone who's going to help us launch, like 20 to 40 fellowships next year." And I said, "Okay, that's great. Who's going to do
Wow.
it?"
Yeah.
He said, "Well, we're kind of hoping that someone with prior managerial experience can help us with this." And before I started at On Deck,
Really
I
beating
actually
around the bush.
bootstrapped and ran a music school, and so I actually had managerial experience. And I said, "Oh, are you asking me to do it?" And at that time, I was an operations intern. This was my first real
Oh, wow.
foray into tech. And he said, "Yeah, do you want to like go do launch team?" And I said, "I have no idea what that is, but sure."
Yeah.
So 2021 was just this whirlwind of hiring a bunch of operators, just really incredible generalists who were so good at learning so much across the board. I'm very, very bullish on the On Deck Mafia, clearly. But it was just hiring a bunch of people, training them, writing playbooks, and figuring out how to launch like 20 to 40 fellowships in 2021. So definitely was an exciting time. And I think we 5x'd our head count in the first half of 2021, and
Wow.
we launched like 13 fellowships in Q1. And so I worked a lot during
Wow.
that time, and it was so fun. I definitely look back as if I'm like recounting war stories, but it was great, a great time.
Yeah, that's like startup land is just war stories, right? Like there's never like, oh, everything was fine, no problems, no
Yeah.
fires.
Oh,
Like we just went up
absolutely
to the
not.
right. Yeah, yeah.
And
Like
sometimes those are the best stories, the best memories. There's pain, of course, but there's just things you can't replace about it.
Absolutely. And I really do believe that for every founder or person who wants to build a company one day, going through the trenches and experiencing something like that is a non-negotiable. Like, you just have to expose yourself to pain because the pain is what causes you to evolve over time into, the mental readiness you need and the kind of founder that you're going to become. So I also just feel really grateful because I met so many incredible people during that time, and it wasn't just my immediate teammates and the people I was working with at On Deck, but it was also the founders and the builders and the investors and all the
Just the
fellows that we had
spirit.
in the program. I mean, I
Yeah.
came in as a nobody, right? And left
without
with
experience in tech, you now know all of the like layers, from
absolutely,
the investors to the C-suite at the company to the fellows who you're meeting all that are doing all these great things. You're now like,
exactly.
I could talk to anyone about anything.
Exactly, for sure, and I think being in an environment like that helps me learn and understand all the different archetypes of founders and builders and investors and what they cared about and all the different roles and functions too, and, we had fellowships that were based on, verticals in the industry, and so I also got to meet some of the brightest minds in health, longevity, climate, like it was just such an incredible learning experience. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that was on deck. It was fun.
Yeah.
it's fun. A quick raise of hands. Who still has PTSD from one of the startups they've created over time? I know that's me over
Every hand
here.
should go up right
Yeah,
now.
every
Should have two
hand.
hands going up right now.
Yeah, right. It's just unfortunately it comes with the territory. I know I do from my first startup. There's so many mistakes that I made. And during that time, like just couldn't see it. Like couldn't see the mistakes being made. I was just naive to much of it. And now looking back of it, I just like almost hate myself for like not recognizing all the things at the time. But it's just like 2020 eyesight and hindsight, right? Like it's just so much easier to look back on and just know that what you did wrong. But in the moment, it gets really tough, right? And there's,
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, you have these ups and these downs, and it's like, oh, someone gave me great feedback, I'm up, and then someone churned, I'm down, kind of thing, And I assume that's a lot of what you do now with coaching leaderships and founders of just not only
Lost it
helping with
there.
the business stuff,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
also like the mentality, all the things, the attitude, and everything that goes into it.
Absolutely. So one of the things that, you know, eh, a lot of people underestimate is our own cognitive bias and um our just our perspective being so limited because we're in the situation. So one of the things we talk a lot about in leadership coaching or any kind of coaching really is how our core baseline emotions play such a huge role in how we think about our situations and how we decide, in the moment or perhaps more responsively what to do about that situation.
Mhm.
And when you are a founder and you are in the thick of it, you just until you hit product market fit, and even then, sometimes
It's hard
this
to
is not
do.
true. You just constantly feel like you're dying. You
Yeah.
constantly feel like everything is on fire. And if you operate in this constant state of being afraid or being anxious or being uncertain, it taints everything. You end up and it's not even just in decision making, it's in how you interact with your team, how you interact with your customers, how you interact with your investors. And so the beauty of having a coach is you've got someone who understands your business intimately and who understands you, and you have this relationship, this foundational trust built already. And this person is not involved in the day to day. And so as a result, they're able to take that third party perspective and say, this is where your fear is exaggerating whatever you're going through. And this is where you are making predictions on what's going to happen when in
Mhm.
actuality, it's probably not the case. And so every time I work with a coaching client, my job is to help them see their blind spots, to see around the corner, and to also share war stories, right? We talked about the war stories earlier.
Mhm.
I have had the personal firsthand experience of building a company. And then I've also had the experience of being a part of this blitz scaling company. And then when I was working with Matt, as the chief of staff, I was able to sit in on pretty much every coaching session Matt ever did during my tenure, which means I've accumulated
Mhm.
many, many stories. And
Yeah.
the thing with collecting stories, I'm a story collector and I love understanding people and understanding what makes them tick and why they behave the way they do. What that means is I get to share stories with my clients, obviously anonymized to protect privacy, but I
Yeah.
get to say, you're not the only person who has gone through this problem, right? And here are 3 other cases that are similar to yours, and here's what they did, and here's what happened as a result. Why would you go through all of the trial and error without learning from other people around you, right? And you might have some founders that say, "Can't I just read these things online or talk to my own friends about it?" You could, but the reality is you're probably surrounded by other people who are at the exact same stage as you, whereas it would be tremendously beneficial if you were able to get the stories from the people who have already made it through, who have gone through the inferno, and they can tell you, "Hey, I went through this a year ago. Here's what I did, and here's what resulted from that action." Then you get to say, "Oh my gosh, this is like a cheat code." I get to learn how to
Mhm.
do what that person did without all of the pain, right? And I get to take that situation and adapt it and shift it so that it's relevant to today's time, today's situation, and my specific company and my instance of the problem. But what you're doing is you're getting a lot more relevant information versus whatever you hear from your friends. And certainly you won't find most of these stories online because online you're just seeing the TechCrunch articles about someone
Yeah.
raising this amount of
Literally.
money or
Yeah.
whatever. Nobody wants to talk about the problems outside, thinking that, there are going to be hit pieces written about you, or your investors won't want to participate in your next round, or your customers are going to think this is a negative signal. So that's what a really experienced coach brings to the table. They get to share these stories with you so you too can understand yourself better and understand how to be a better leader for your team.
So coaching is more about helping people understand and see for themselves and make the decisions themselves instead of, hey, let me tell you what to do.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be like, oh, the right answer is obviously this. Hey, here are the things I know that have happened. Synthesize that and make the best decision.
That's mostly correct. So I would say 99% of my job is what you just said, which is here's the information. I'm going to teach you how to build a framework for yourself so that instead of me handing you fish, I teach you how to fish, right? So
Mhm.
that way you're not reliant on a coach forever. You get better as a leader and you can eventually go and do this on your own. There are instances, however, that are
Mhm.
universal where inevitably I'll meet a founder, they're afraid, their emotions are running high and they say, "I'm gonna do this thing." And it's just really clear that it's not the right thing to do. I will say that is not the thing to
Hey,
do.
don't do that.
And there are certain
Yeah.
things that we repeat over and over and over again as
Yeah.
coaches, like practice making people feel hurt. A big part of that is repeating back to that person what you think you've understood that person saying, right?
Yeah.
So often in conversation, even like take it outside of the lens of coaching or even startups, when you go out with your friends and you're having a conversation, you say something, and as you're talking to that person, they're already thinking about what they're going to say in response to you about
Yeah.
themselves. And
Right.
at no point did you ever really feel understood and heard, right? And
Mhm.
so that's a good example of something I will say, this is what you need to do, which perhaps is a little bit more prescriptive, but certainly, even if I wasn't that opinionated about it, most founders can get on board with, oh yeah, I really need to practice being a better listener, because I myself understand the value of that. And very rarely do I ever feel like I'm fully listened to in the process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I think there are definitely tactical piece of advice that, if you've seen it, there is a right way to do certain things. Hey, no, you don't really want to do that. Here's why. Here are the pitfalls in 3 years of why giving, equity grant to this kind of person at this rate without a vesting schedule is going to be bad. Maybe you don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chances
Yeah,
are you're not
Beehive is a great
actually venting
example.
anything.
Yeah, like we know those are not good choices.
Yeah,
Um, but otherwise, like being able to make decisions and have the confidence to keep moving is really important.
I think
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
another thing I'll say on that is, not just the company, but like their own founders' mental and physical health too, and how that's
Mhm.
often neglected, which then is a
Totally.
downstream thing that affects everything else as well. Like I've seen a lot of posts, online of just, my company got really in this jam spot, and so I stopped doing X, Y, and Z kind of thing, and that just led to even more of a jam, and it's like, so how do you balance the mental and physical well-being of yourself while also running a company, which is essentially, right, raising many kids at the same time?
You cannot concentrate on more than 3 things at any given time. What I mean by that is so you can't have more than 3 goals or priorities. And so let's say you're a CEO. You're running a pre-seed, seed stage company, which means that you're financially strapped. You feel like your back is against the wall. Everything is always on fire. You never have enough output, no matter how many hours your team is working. Let's say that's your situation. If you look at your calendar and you are just everywhere, you are in your Slack, you are in your email, you're doing customer calls, you're all over the place, that is called you having 10 different priorities. And nothing is a priority if you behave that way. So, one of the first things I do with anyone I work with is I ask them, if you really could only pick 3 things, what are the 3 things that are the most important for you to focus on? And everything else that either you're not good at or there's someone else on the team who is more equipped to handle this thing, or you just don't get energy from it, whatever it is, you delegate that away or you automate it using low code, no code tools, or you bring on an assistant to help you. I mean, even at a pre-seed seed stage company, there are options to outsource at a very affordable rate. And so you have to be really meticulous about zoning in on just a couple of things. And the thing is, once you do that, what ends up happening is the CEO all of a sudden has all of this free time. And the story that they tell themselves is, I need to be the hardest working person on my team. If I'm not working 80 hours a week, how can I expect my team to work 80 hours a week? And the thing is, if everyone in your team is disciplined about staying meticulously focused on just the things that really move the needle forward, everything else is busy work. Everything else is just momentum that makes you feel like you are super productive and like you're working super hard, burning the midnight oil. That's not actually true, right? And I say this as someone who used to pull 80-hour weeks, right? Unfortunately, I did not have an executive coach telling me these things.
Mhm.
So
Can we
what
get a little more granular and give some examples of what a priority might be? It's not send an email to a client, it's find customers, it's
Or raise
yeah.
money?
make raise money, it's make the product A plus. Like, is that too big of a priority? Or
No, I don't think so. So I have, I'll give you an example actually. I have a coachee who is just one of the most talented CEOs I know. And when I started working with him, he was doing everything in the company. And he was working 7 days a week and he was, working for 80 to 100-hour weeks and was neglecting his sleep and his exercise routine
Right.
to do this, right? And he was like, I need to do this because if I don't, then I'm just not going to be able to raise my next round. And, we have really big shoes to fill.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people in those situations.
Absolutely. So then I said, okay, if you could pick three things that are true by the end of the year, what are they? So one was customer focused, right? We need to have X number of sales by this time. And that needs to be true because that's going to be the thing that leads to our investors following into the next round. And I want these investors. I want these investors. I don't want these investors, right? So he made these decisions. He said, I need that number of sales in order for this number to be true. And that also probably means I need headcount to be at this point by the end of the year. So those were the three goals that he picked for the year. And I said, okay, so this was in the beginning of the year. I said, all right, how can we take this really big goal by the end of the year and chunk it off so that you have immediate goals for the halfway point? So we just passed the halfway point on Monday, right? He said, okay, well, I could probably like slash that number by like I could probably get to a third of that because I know that sales will take off once we like get to this point. So can I close like a third of whatever that goal is? Okay, that's reasonable. That's still like making him sweat a little bit, but it feels a little bit more certain. And then we said, okay, what can you do for the month, right? And he said, oh, this is just like a no-brainer now. I know that I need to enable this team or like these people on my team to like do these outbounds so that we have fun. All of a sudden, like the point here is the thinking becomes much more concise and clear. And all of a sudden he's not worried about inbox zero, Slack zero, like 20 times a day, which let's face it, we check our email inbox every 6 minutes, which is just not healthy for anyone. And then he was like, I feel like I'm not doing enough now. And I said, are you sleeping? And he said, I am getting back to sleeping enough, but like I get anxious that I'm not like, it's weird not working. And I said, yeah, you've got this momentum going right now that makes you feel like unless I'm working 80-hour weeks, I must be a lazy CEO. But then that becomes a whole different problem, right, David? Like it's no longer, oh no, like I'm not concentrated or focused. It becomes a measure of self-worth. Am I good enough as a CEO if I am not burning myself into
I
the
end up
ground, right?
when
And by the way, as soon as he was super focused, the rest of the team breathed a sigh of relief too, because they were all of a sudden very, very focused. All he would talk about were these three things. And so their priorities became a lot more clear. And then all of a sudden, everyone was performing better because they were able to collaborate on a smaller number of things, but higher quality things. And their sales took off. Like, I feel very, very proud of this team because they really have done incredible work focusing, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think from experience talking to people who are in build mode, the other part of this like need to stay busy is also to fight off shiny object syndrome. Like in the no code, low code
Mhm.
world where you can launch a product in a weekend or so they say, they're like, well, I have some extra time. I've been wanting to tinker on this thing. Let me go figure this out. And so keeping people focused and not going, oh, let me just fill more time.
yeah.
Because I have the time, I should do more.
Absolutely. I mean, the bar that I put forth with my clients is let's look at all of these different facets of your life. Let's look at your personal life, you as an individual, your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health. Is that at a 10 out of 10? Unless it's not, like, unless it is, like, there's work to be done there. Then let's look at your relationships, your partner, your family, your children, your friends. Is that at a 10 out of 10? If not, then there's work to be done there. Because right now, what you're saying is like, my work life is at a 10 out of 10. This is the most we can do. We
Yeah.
can't do anything else, right? And then if there are things to add, like I know one founder who, again, love and admire and respect him. He has been so crystal clear focused from day one because he's a second time founder. So he's like, I've played this game before. I'm not going to make those mistakes again.
Yeah.
He's been so crystal clear focused on customers, right? And making these sales that like nothing else matters to him. But these are enterprise sales, which sales cycles are really slow, right? So instead of stacking his plate full of shiny objects and like building new things and like building more features and like taking on more things, he's like, how can I like make this pipeline even better? So he made the decision I'm going to start a podcast, because actually, like, in my space and like the people I'm selling to, podcasting is like a huge signal on whether like we're like a legitimate company or not. I'm going to work on, bringing guests. I'm going to work on becoming a better leader. I'm going to work on um, making sure that like the team has everything they need to like build at a sustainable but aggressive pace, right? So he added more in this case, but it was still very focused on the
On the
number one goal for
priority.
him, which was close these things by the end
Yeah.
of the year, right?
Now we're in this new world of AI. We're going to talk some more startups in a second, but in the AI world, we're seeing people talk about now you can do more with less, right? Hey, I can use an AI coder. I can use AI automation. I can use AI to make a clone of me. But now we're
Mhm.
talking about really being focused and not adding all of these extra shiny objects and auxiliary features and all this stuff. Does AI throw a wrench in the calm version of running a company?
Is there a calm version of running a company? I
If if
mean,
if we're
it's
setting
Yeah.
idealistic,
priorities, but
but
now we're like, well, now I need, this like I need fewer people because AI should replace them and I need my head count to be less. And we're setting the bar at a different level.
yeah, but you still need to give them prompting, you still need to give them instructions, you need to check in on them. There's still so much that goes in. It's still like delegating to a team member, even though, and it's like that's taking you away from those goals, right?
But I like the
Yeah.
hustle porn,
I
right? Like, oh, I raise the money. Oh, I'm a $1 billion solo founder, right? Like someone's gonna try to do that, and it's not going to actually be so it's not gonna be what we expect. And now the culture is do more, hire fewer people, don't delegate, automate. And you're like you said, you're actually doing a lot more work. It just feels like not the same because it's somehow now AI. I don't know.
yeah, I think from what I've seen, when you start integrating these tools into building a company, there's a lot of upfront cost, right? The same thing is true for no code, where you have a lot of setup that you have to do. And that leads eventually to automation, which it might feel like a lot of front loaded work. But if you've made the calculation that that is going to save you time and it's not even something that you really particularly enjoy doing, and you can do it much more efficiently by I still think of it as delegation, even though it's automation, you're delegating it to an
Mhm.
automated thing, right? Um, I think ultimately it does save you time. Now, you mentioned hustle porn, David, and I do think there, just based on what I've seen in the investing world, there's a lot of pressure from uh, investors on their portfolio companies to exploit these tools. I remember catching up with a friend of mine who works at a VC firm that specializes in growth stage companies. And the general sentiment there, they're all Series B and above, right? The general sentiment is we know that this is a big deal, but we don't actually know what to do with it. And we don't know how to apply it right now. So I do think that professional services are going to become much, much more prevalent. So there is definitely space for non-SaaS to become potentially sexy in the
Mhm.
next couple of years, right? But a lot of these companies right now are like, I need to figure out how to use this. I don't want to just jump into using things. I see that behavior much more with
Mhm.
smaller companies or younger companies that somehow think they can outrun the competition by integrating these tools. I tell them at the end of the day, it's still about who gets to product market fit the fastest. And you can't
Right.
AI-ify, getting to know your
Yeah.
customers and like
Mhm.
getting to know their
Yeah.
problems, right? Um, so I think with these larger companies, though, they're moving a little bit slower in adopting because they don't know exactly how to adopt yet. That's where professional services might become really interesting, like AI consultants,
Mhm.
for example. I have a couple of friends that have already been in the space for a while, so they are getting pinged left and right now by these bigger companies. The second thing is privacy and security. A lot of people are have question marks around, who owns what, and that problem becomes much more prevalent as
Mhm.
you are a bigger company with more money raised because you become just a bigger target. So I do think there is this sense of obligation and duty to somehow integrate these tools into, your workflow. But ultimately, I don't know that it necessarily changes the dynamic
Mhm.
very much from what it already is today. Um, I'm imagining like before Slack existed, I guess like Uber built their own internal Slack and other companies were like building their own internal comms. And then Slack was invented. Did that make our work life more simplified? No, it just made us work differently, right?
Mhm.
And I think the same thing is true here. There's really no such thing as an AI company. There's just a new kind of tool with a new kind of
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah, we see automation agencies doing really well right now, where just bigger companies need or want some advising consulting of we have all these systems. How do we gain efficiencies and automations? And of course, leveraging AI with that to unlock new things. And I think that's going to continue to happen in that service based way. See a lot of growth
Absolutely.
there.
For sure. And I think it's a helpful reminder to founders, given that that's your primary audience, right? That you shouldn't be adding AI for the sake of adding AI into your
Yeah.
company, right? Like, don't don't go searching for problems where there are no problems. You have plenty of problems without having to search for them
Mhm.
already. Now, when you are dealing with these problems, like let's say there's inefficiencies and like you don't have enough money to bring on more headcount and there's a lot of work, sure, like look into the options you have. And you should definitely be looking into AI options if um, you are searching for that solution. But don't go searching for tools left and right just to be like, oh, well, I could maybe save myself this much time here. Like, look at where you are spending time and look at where there is headcount that is missing or where people are really struggling and burned out and like go solve those problems
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a quick time check. We've about 5 more minutes left here. Any last things that we want to get into that you guys we haven't been able to talk about yet?
Yeah, I have something that I want to touch on, and that is just the kind of company that a founder is building being in alignment with who the founder is. A big problem I see, especially with earlier stage founders and especially younger first time founders, is when they set out to build something, they have all sorts of thoughts in their head about what the company should be like and what kind of product they want to build. I love product oriented founders because they're so passionate about whatever it is they're building and about solving real problems for real customers. Somewhere along the line, however, with all of the noise of social media, of investors, of influencers, all these people on their soapboxes just saying stuff, that line starts to shake. And founders start to get sucked into the rabbit hole of, oh, I need to be building this way because this investor said so, or I need to be adopting this technology because this person said that, this is going to save us a lot of time, or whatever it is, right? A founder needs to understand who they are at the core of who of themselves and what they value and really make sure that the company they're building is a reflection of that. There's no one right or wrong company building method or culture. You just have to make sure that it's the one that you
Mhm.
choose, right? And so oftentimes when by the time a founder comes and finds me, they're usually at the point of burnout. They're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm 25 and I've raised like $10 million and like who the hell gave me all this money? Give like the green light. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. And when we do a postmortem on everything that has happened thus far, somewhere along the line that founder lost their way. They started hearing like they started meeting with their investors like for their monthly call, and the investor who thinks about their company for like 10 minutes every month is giving them
Mhm.
advice on how to run their companies. And like the founder needs to trust themselves above anyone else,
Mhm.
above like their investors, above their spouses, their partners, whoever it is. Like you have set out to build this company for a reason. So you have to understand who are you, what do you care about, and make sure that you're living your life in complete aligned integrity to those values, because what that does is it sets you up to be the best kind of leader for your company, and your company becomes a place that you really feel excited to be a part of, not a place where you're dreading because somebody else has decided what that culture is or how the company is supposed to
Yeah.
run. So if you do your alignment exercise, right? Let's say you like figure out, oh, actually, it really matters to me to have a life where I get to go out on a date with my partner once a week, or I want to be there for my kids and I don't want to miss soccer game, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? I feel really, really good about working really hard and smart. And so I think if I'm really focused, I can do this in 60 hours a week or whatever it is. Like, be be very diligent and keep up with that sort of bar you set for yourself. Just be very discerning and don't allow anyone else to tell you that you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that too just starts with like mapping out your time and your top three priorities and everything coming together. And like if it just
And
doesn't make
mapping
sense
out your
on paper,
values. Your values
right?
are going to determine your priorities, right?
There you go. And if it doesn't make sense on paper, then it's just not going to work, right? Like you need
Exactly.
you can't just go into it and say I'll make it work every single day, and it doesn't work every single day, and just stay
Yeah.
in that pattern. You got to have goals, and those goals have small goals leading up to those goals, and you need to constantly reflect and update pending everything going in life. And sometimes you might set up goals, and then you realize halfway into that goal, your partner's not happy with everything that's been, and then you need to
Yeah.
readjust and
That's
everything,
right.
and that's fine. That's life, right?
Hmm.
And you can either ignore it and create more potential buildup in tension, or you can, handle it in one way or the other and adjust things accordingly. And I think that's a healthy situation too. And so, for our founders out there that are going through anything, really, just don't be afraid to talk about it, right? And don't be afraid to try and take yourself out of the situation and try to look at it from a big picture view on a regular basis. Because sometimes we get so sucked into the daily that we just can't see that 100-foot view or that 1,000-foot view. And then we end up seeing that the daily is actually on the wrong GPS all the whole way.
That's
And that
right.
we really need to back up and figure out the
Yeah.
things. So it's great
Yeah.
that people have resources like you, Regina. Hopefully our podcast helps as a resource as well. Where could people, if they want to use your services or learn more about you, find you, Regina?
Yeah. So if anybody wants to be part of my world, my website is coachingfounder.com. I have all of my written resources for free available there. I also have a bunch of templates that have been battle tested
Mhm.
and proven available for free download on your Notion hub. I also have a couple of different coaching offerings. JJ, you know about the Journey Makers, but a good friend of mine, Sabrina, and I are doing group coaching sessions for early stage founders. If you want that, sacred space to talk about all of these things in an environment where you're not going to be judged, we're running that. I'll give you the link to that so you can put in the show notes. And then the last thing is with my integrity alignment, the last thing I was talking about, I do help a lot of founders or builders that are at the crossroads of trying to figure out what's next or that are experiencing burnout with deciding what those top values are so that you have a framework to decide your priorities and your goals and all of that stuff for your company. So I'll also give you the link so you can put that in the show notes as
That's
well.
fantastic.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for taking the time today. We really appreciate having
Yeah.
you on.
Absolutely. Thanks
Thanks.
for having me.
I love it, and I just want to ask everything, and I'm like, shit, I'm just doing it all wrong.
Yeah, it's easy to feel that way as well. I think you underestimate how powerful just talking or just saying things
Oh,
out loud can
yeah.
really be. Even though, like we, as startup founders, normally if we're lucky enough to have a partner, we just talk to that partner about all these things. But like they're just not in it, and they're just listening because they're being a good partner, but they don't maybe have that experience. And so, talking to someone that has that experience and that can help show other, successful examples or not of what had happened could also be advantageous.
Yeah.
And also just talking to someone outside of your sphere, the same way of like you just now get out of your day to day could also just be like a healthy perspective as well.
Yeah.
And
Someone
so
who's
like,
in startups, who gets startups, but not in this one, that doesn't
yeah,
also have the scars and the wounds and the bias of everything they've heard so far,
right.
and your telling of everything to date, as opposed to a fresh look, a fresh start, and well, hey, like on a whole new set of experiences, maybe it's this.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
that's so nice.
Yeah. And I remember I had a startup coach for my first startup. and he was a very successful CEO, like a big CEO. And I was a very tiny little startup CEO. Like we just didn't relate in that sense.
Mhm.
And so like it's also important to find like someone that has been in your shoes or knows in your industry, like your stage of company too,
Mhm.
because it's much more actionable advice. But I think the carryover to this episode or in this episode is, there's a lot changing in technology, no code, AI, low code, et cetera. There's a lot changing. We often feel like we need to stay up with the Jones or whatever the phrase might be. But at the same time, we also just need to make sure that, we're solving problems and taking
Yep.
care of our customers. And, that's always going to be the goal. And along the way, we also might have some difficulties, in work, running that company, outside of work, all that kind of stuff. And that's also okay and part of the journey. And that you need to be able to, prioritize, set goals, and also be able to find time for yourself, your mental well-being, your physical well-being, your family, all that kind of stuff. I think to have a long, sustainable success, because remember, these things aren't made overnight, 3, 4, 5, 8, 10 years it takes. And if you can't get into a healthy, sustainable way, you're just never going to make it to find that success after all. And so don't just do like a 1 week race and say, okay, because you're just not going to get to where you want to be. It's
Mhm.
about finding a repeatable, sustainable model that you can do over the long term and find happiness along the way.
Yeah. Amen. Well, with that, I think we'll see you next week in No Code.
And AI, we'll see you there.
Yeah. See ya.